How to Read a Book, written by philosopher Mortimer Adler in 1940, has become a classic guide to reading comprehension and critical analysis. The book aims to teach the average reader skills for deep reading and absorbing complex information. Adler argues that reading is an active process of learning, not a passive act. He asserts that contemporary education has failed to adequately teach students how to grasp the deeper meaning of texts. Through a series of rules and recommendations, Adler provides a step-by-step method to improve reading skills. He covers strategies such as classifying a work by kind and subject matter, identifying the main ideas, breaking down structure, interpreting key terms, and critically evaluating an author's arguments. Chapter 1 to the average reader. Most people do not know what is involved in the art of reading and think it is a simple, natural process like looking or walking. But reading is actually a complex skill that must be learned. There are many different types and degrees of reading ability. This book aims to help the average reader who wants to improve their reading skills. It is not for experts or those who cannot read at all. Chapter 2: The Reading of Reading. An important part of reading is interpreting key words, which often have multiple meanings. The word reading itself has many meanings, so the author defines it here as the process of interpreting words, symbols to receive communication. There are different types of reading ability. Some can read difficult material, others only simpler books. Better readers can extract more meaning from a text. Good reading involves active analysis and interpretation. Chapter 3: Reading is Learning. Reading for information versus reading for understanding. These are two main types of reading for instruction. The former gives facts, the latter gives deeper insight. Learning can be through instruction, being taught by others, or discovery, learning on your own. Reading is learning through instruction, specifically from dead teachers, books written by others. Philosophy books appeal to ordinary experiences we can all relate to, while science books refer to specialized experiences from research and observation. This is a key difference. Chapter 4: Teachers, Dead or Alive. Live teachers can show us how to do something, while dead teachers in books can only provide knowledge. But books allow us to learn from the greatest minds, so are invaluable. Primary, great books are original works that elevate our understanding. Secondary books just repeat common knowledge. The former challenge us more but teach us more. Chapter 5: The Defeat of the Schools. Schools have failed to adequately teach reading comprehension. Evidence shows most students cannot understand complex texts or read critically. Reasons for this failure: 1. More focus on testing than basic literacy skills. 2. Educators themselves don't know how to teach reading comprehension well. Self-education through reading great books can compensate for deficiencies in school education. Chapter 6: On Self-Help. Like any skill, reading requires practice following rules to develop good habits. This book provides guidance, but the reader must put effort into improving. The rules here focus on reading expository books for knowledge, not imaginative literature. Poetry requires different rules. Must read related books together to fully understand them. Rules help intrinsic reading of a single book, while Chapter 14 covers extrinsic aspects. Chapter 7: From Many Rules to One Habit. There are rules for 3 distinct readings of a book. 1. Structural, analytic. 2. Interpretive, synthetic. 3. Critical, evaluative. The first 2 eventually fuse together. Following all the rules leads to one integrated habit of reading well. But initially they must be practiced separately. Chapter 8: Catching on from the title. Rule 1 for the first reading: classify the book by subject matter and kind, using the title, preface, table of contents. Practical versus theoretical books: this is the major distinction. Knowing the kind helps approach the book properly. Chapter 9: Seeing the skeleton. Rule 2: state the unity of the whole book in a sentence or paragraph. Rule 3: outline the major parts and their hierarchy. Together these reveal the structure. Good writing has unity, clarity and coherence. Good reading discerns this underlying skeleton hidden beneath the surface. Chapter 10, Coming to Terms. Next chapters cover rules for the second reading, starting with key terms. Don't assume you know terms. Look them up in dictionaries to understand their exact meaning. Terms have two contexts. 1. The general usage in the language. 2. The particular author's specialized usage. Look for shifts in meaning. Main point is to avoid vague understanding, define terms precisely. This precision is the essence of understanding. Chapter 11, Agreeing or Disagreeing with an Author. After interpretive reading, if you find no flaws in the author's knowledge, reasoning, or completeness, you must agree with their main points. If you still feel unconvinced despite no clear flaws, you probably do not truly understand the book yet. Critical reading requires understanding first. If you find flaws, you can fairly disagree. But give specific reasons grounded in facts and logic. Avoid vague personal dislikes. Disagreements about knowledge can be resolved through facts and reasoning. Issues of opinion are arguable but not resolvable definitively. Treat disagreements as opportunities to teach and be taught. Remain open-minded and aim for greater truth, not just confirming your existing views. Chapter 12, Aids to Reading. Extrinsic sources like reference works, commentaries, and discussions with others can help interpret and critique a book. Reading related books on the same topic provides context and surfaces contrasts between authors' perspectives. Read books in light of each other. Discussing books with others sharpens your critical abilities. Teaching others also deepens your own understanding. Reference works like dictionaries help clarify meanings. Commentaries elucidate difficult concepts. Reviews offer alternate perspectives. Chapter 13, The Rules for Criticism. The 4 rules for criticism. 1. Don't criticize until you understand. 2. Don't criticize disputatiously. 3. Distinguish knowledge from opinion. 4. State your objections precisely. The 4 points to criticize. 1. Identify where the author is uninformed. 2. Identify errors and unsupported claims. 3. Point out faulty reasoning. 4. Note incomplete analysis. Criticizing well requires insight into the book's purpose, whether practical, evaluating principles, rules, or theoretical, judging truth. The best criticism elevates discussion. It contributes new knowledge, insights, or perspectives rather than just expressing likes or dislikes. Chapter 14, on the classics and books in general. Classic works are original seminal books that exercise extraordinary influence by introducing new ideas or modes of thought. Classics address perennial human concerns. They remain relevant across time and cultures. Each generation can gain new insights from revisiting them. Mastering the classics is the path to becoming truly literate. The best books train you to read well by demanding critical engagement from the reader. Books teach best when read in relation to each other across history. Understanding one classic lights the way to those that preceded and followed it. Chapter 15, How to Read Practical Books. Practical books deal with human conduct and action. They aim to instruct more than delight. Focus on the author's objectives and proposed means. Evaluate if their principles, rules are sound and their goals worthwhile. Reference the author's life, times, and influences to fully understand their point of view. Chapter 16, How to Read Imaginative Literature. Fiction and poetry appeal primarily to emotions and imagination rather than intellect. They recreate subjective experiences rather than teach objective facts. Focus on the artistic elements: imagery, symbolism, plot, characters. Let the work transport you into its imagined world. Avoid reading hidden messages into fiction. Appreciate the aesthetic qualities and how they make you feel. Great works of imaginative literature unite theme and structure to express timeless truths about human nature and existence. Chapter 17, Suggestions for Reading Stories, Plays, and Poems. Understand the genre conventions of different types of imaginative works. Don't critiquing fiction using the standards for expository writing. Analyze elements like setting, character, voice, plot, symbolism. Interpret how they artistically render subjective experiences. Evaluate fiction based on artistic merit, vividness, plausibility, emotional impact, universality of themes conveyed through the imagined experience. Chapter 18: How to Read History. History blends art and knowledge. It recounts events but also interprets their significance through a narrative point of view. Look for the author's theoretical framework and how it shapes their interpretation. Compare different historians' accounts to understand their biases. Consider the historical context and limitations of the author's time period. Apply updated empirical evidence carefully to their interpretations. Chapter 19: How to Read Science and Mathematics. Science books impart theoretical knowledge based on empirical observation and testing. Focus on the facts reported and how they were established. Mathematics books develop theoretical systems deductively from defined initial premises. Trace how conclusions logically follow from the initial premises. In science, understand how experiments support inductions. In math, understand how theorems build on basic axioms or postulates. Reading original scientific works requires enough direct knowledge of the field to grasp the facts and experiments discussed. Chapter 20: How to Read Philosophy. Philosophy uses reason, not empirical evidence, to seek ultimate principles and causes. Evaluate truth of first principles as well as logic of arguments. Trace how philosophers respond to predecessors. Understanding primary sources directly is better than reading commentaries about them. Philosophical issues require readers to think independently. Multiple interpretations of truths are possible. There are no authoritative answers. Chapter 21: On Reading Theology. Theology assumes faith in sacred texts and doctrines. Critique theological works based on their internal logical consistency, not external evidence. Reference primary scriptural sources to fully understand theological reasoning. The Bible, Quran, etc. are central to interpreting theological authors. So, in summary, the later chapters provide more specifics on critically reading different types of books, from practical to fiction to science and philosophy. But the emphasis remains on analytical, engaged reading to deeply understand an author's knowledge and perspective.